Wonderful to meet you, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Oh, you're so welcome, and it's a pleasure to meet you too, Joe.
So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, one of the most magnanimous things that happened in our lifetime began, which was the pandemic, was really raging. How much of living through that pandemic has reverberated into your work and what you do today?
I would say a lot because there's been a lot of mental health. I mean, you think about it, people were isolated back at their homes. They couldn't leave, they couldn't go anywhere. And a lot of people that were on the road never really got to know their wives or their kids. And I seen like, I'm not sure how it was in the States, but here in Canada, like the divorce rate went up because people never really saw their significant others or their families. And when they came home, they didn't understand each other.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I'm learning about the pandemic is it showed our shadows. And since I started my journey, I do a lot of shadow work. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with shadow work or not, but it's like going deep within and finding all that trauma that you've gone through as a child in your adult years. So I believe the pandemic it's been a it's been bad for others, but it's also been good because it showed us that we need to work through our mental health.
I think that to me, when I look at the pandemic, I think that's one of the best outgrowths of it because I remember when Robin Williams passed away. Before that, there was all of this talk of depression, and no one could figure out how a guy like him could, get to a point where he wanted to end his life. Even Chris Cornell, there was other situations like that. I think there was a lot of people out there, like with climate change, just dismissed it. No, it's just you didn't feel good. You should have just done something to feel better. But I think what the pandemic did for humanity is it put a light in a dark room and said, no, there are things in this room that we need to see. We're not just fumbling around and tripping over things that are anonymous. So I think that's been a good thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was impelled to come to your story, because I think it also shone a light on a lot of traumas that were buried for a long time. And I think that's a question that I have for you. For people out there that may not remember, maybe it's buried in the subconscious, the brain does weird things, astral projection and things to get over trauma. How do people find that they've had trauma and decide that they want to treat it?
I say look within. The biggest thing I had to do was to understand that I was dealing with trauma, and I had to look within myself to really understand that. And but a lot of us don't want to look within because we have so many distractions. We are also in environments that are so loud and chaotic, and then our relationships, our work environments. So we really never get a time to ourselves. So the biggest thing that I've learned on my journey is to not isolate yourself, but to get yourself away from the noise. Go out in nature, get into a quiet area where there's no distractions, just you and your thoughts, and get into journaling. Journaling's helped me a lot to get out my feelings. I do shadow work like daily as much as possible because we never stop healing. There's always going to be work to be done. And when you become aware of it, that's the biggest step. Once you start to become aware that you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, you're depressed, when you start to ask yourself questions, your subconscious will communicate with you and tell you what's going on. It's just we don't do it because we automatically think, oh, we're talking to ourselves, so others will think we're crazy. No, some of the most brilliant minds in the world talk to themselves on a daily basis. Like you look at like Luke Bellamar, who spent 7 days just alone in isolation talking to himself, and that's how he built his empire. And you look at like Warren Buffett and all the other major successful entrepreneurs, that's what they did. They spent lots of time meditating, getting to know themselves. You're not going to know your strengths and weaknesses until you go within yourself. And until you go within yourself, you're not going to know that there's trauma there. So the first thing I would say was start to become aware when you're feeling things and start to question yourself. And if you don't want to question yourself, write it down just to remind yourself.
I think that's a great point with the writing. I know for a long time I've written poetry. I've gotten it out, and I've always mused that it's kind of the blue collar therapy But there is a lot of truth to getting just literally getting that out, however you want to form it into prose or verse, or if you want to just get it out in a journal. I think that's always for me in my life. I look back and I think that was huge because then you can go back and sometimes I'll find myself going back and I'm like, man, was I even thinking that? Is that me? Which is the beauty of the process of getting your thoughts on paper.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like I catch myself reflecting all the time. Like I'll just be sitting there driving and something will pop into my head like an old argument or something. And then I think to myself, oh, now that I know what I know, that argument would have happened. So it gives you kind of the tools when you start to reflect and it realizes that we choose the trauma because it's what we attract. What we put out, we attract. And I put out a lot of traumatic ways to get picked on. And I realized that as I was growing up. But if I hadn't not gone through this trauma, I never would have wrote my book. I
Yeah.
never would have started a podcast. I never would have became a quantum healer, and I never would have gone into coaching. So my trauma, I've learned to embody it and love it. That's why I love my shadow. I learned to love my shadow too, because my shadow, yeah, it's taken me down some dark roads, but hadn't I gone down those dark roads, I wouldn't be speaking to you right now.
So let me ask you this question. If I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day and one of the kids in the back of the room wanted to know what you did for a living, how would you answer them?
I would say I help people. I help people to understand their subconscious mind and that I give you the tools to work with your own healing. It'd be like kids don't know how to do this. Like the reason we are like we play the victim all the time. And I know I was bullied a lot when I was a kid, but now I show compassion for bullies because okay, why are they beginning to bully me in the first place? What's going on with them? And if kids start to ask those questions, then they don't have any more fear. They don't feel like they're the victim. In fact, they want to help, they want to heal. So I would say to kids that I help you heal within and I show you tools and techniques for you to use for yourself. And I don't do anything really, it's all you. Even with my clients, I facilitate the hypnosis, but my clients do all the work. I don't do anything. I'm just give a safe space and you do the work yourself. That's what we all need to do is do the work within. And when we start to work within ourselves, we start to work with others. We start to want to help others. And then it's like a chain reaction. It just keeps going. You keep spreading the healing, the love, and the joy. And we weren't taught that as kids. So that's what I would tell kids or 12 to 13-year olds is you don't have to be the victim. You can be the hero in your own story.
So when you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to grow up and become?
I didn't have a dream job. I didn't know how to like have a dream job because I was so focused on getting through school without getting beaten up or getting through class because I was completely focused on the bully that was going to beat me up. So I didn't really have a dream. And if I did try to have a dream, it was squashed. Like people would tell me, "No, you're wasting your time. Like you're not going to amount to that." And why are you even trying? So I never had dreams growing up. I didn't start dreaming until I became in late into my 30s. That's when I started to dream because I had that victim mentality in my head from grade 1 all the way up till I was 37 and it just played over and over in my head. So I had no dreams. I had no expectations. I didn't have anything. All I had was remorse for myself. I wanted control. I chased money. I chased validation. I chased relationships. I thought if I was rich that people would like me. Like I didn't have any dreams. And that was because I let my trauma control me.
So in your 30s, when did you know that your life right now was the right path for you, that you were going to help people figure out their subconscious, help them get to a better place? Was there a moment? Was there a collection of moments? How did that happen?
In 2021, I lost my mother, and that was the breaking point for me. I was so angry at the world. I was angry at the person I was with at the time. I was I was just getting angry in general, and I was angry at God for taking her. I pleaded with God that night that I watched her die in front of me, and it just shook me to my core. And I something inside of me was like, you know what, you got to change. So I made my first appointment for holistic healing And this lady introduced me to an author named Dolores Cannon. I started to read Dolores's books, and her teachings just got to me. It showed me that I was no longer need to fear, and that I had to do the work. And that's when I started to get into journaling and writing out my feelings and my thoughts. And I started to write my memoirs just to get it out, and it turned out to be a book, The Enemy Within: Fear is Our Greatest Opponent. And it was just my life story, but it was all the tools and techniques that I've learned through meditating, through doing yoga, just understanding, becoming aware, being mindful. Yeah, it took a lot of work. I'm still working through it to this day. Like nobody's perfect. You got to keep working. You got to keep showing up each day. So that was the biggest indicator of dreams for me. And then I got married, and I never thought I'd be married. I started my own podcast, and that was it. That was when I started to believe. And then I just kept believing and practicing it. So now I help others that went through this sort of ordeal in their life deal with the same issues that I had.
So, who's been a heroic force for you, an inspiration that's allowed you to evolve into where you're at today?
I would say Dolores Cannon's been the biggest like help for me, like with her teaching. And then I took the course that she taught, and just the knowledge and how peaceful like she was with her clients, and just her own journey in general. Like she had done this for 50 some years, and she had seen so many clients, traveled all over the world, and she brought so much love. And it just showed me that fear is an illusion, pain is an illusion, and we just kind of like give our power away. And once you realize that you are not the victim and that you chose this in a soul contract, it gives you your power back. And then you also, when a person is around you and they're having a terrible day and they're taking it out on you, the first thing I ask myself is, what's wrong with that little boy? What's wrong with that little girl? Why are they hurting? Because we don't know these things. We weren't taught these things. So she was my biggest influence for getting me sober, getting me out of a toxic relationship, getting me away from a toxic job. And it kept going after that. And I just haven't looked back since. It was like I just started a new chapter in my life. And then the marriage was my first chapter, and then the book. And yeah, I'm looking to see what the next chapter is going to be in my story.
So, what gets you up every day and what ultimately puts a smile on your face at the end of the day?
What gets me up every day is, well, my wife, for one. I love waking up to her. But two, just getting up and just feeling like I'm fulfilled, like not fulfilled like work-wise or anything, just fulfilled in peace. And then when I do my meditation, I do my breath work, it just brings a more positive, peaceful um, feeling to me. And it keeps me motivated to keep going and do more content and talk more on my show and promote my book. And because I never thought I'd do any of this, because I basically thought I was going to be either dead or like homeless or someone or just alone forever. So I didn't really have these expectations. So now I'm just grateful to wake up every morning and have a wonderful wife, have a nice home, have a job, have a book out. Like it's that's what keeps me motivated, is just the knowing that life is going to get better, and the challenges we face, they're just lessons and new opportunities for another path to rise above and to stay strong.
So, let me ask you this, dealing with trauma and helping people get
Mm.
to a better place in their lives means you have to jump into trauma and heavy stuff. How do you protect yourself and nurture your soul and make sure that you keep all of it in its proper perspective?
With rituals, meditation, crystals, I wear a lot of crystals. I say rituals all the time. I do a lot of meditations. I smudge myself after I'm done being around people. I smudge my home. Like, there's many ways you can protect yourself, like words, even. Like, I tell myself I'm worthy, I'm strong, I'm helping these people. you almost have to stay in that high vibration. That's how you don't get sucked into those negative energies that drain your body. And yeah, there's some days where I'm tired after I do a session, but I find a good meal and some smudging and a bit of ritual and a meditation, and I'm good to go. It's basically about what mindset you're in. But I was in a victim mindset my entire life, and I was afraid of everything. Now I'm not afraid really of anything because I don't see the point of fear anymore because I've learned that visiting my mom when I was meditating in the spiritual realm has taught me a lot about understanding death is something to be it's not something to be afraid. It's a part of the sentient part process, and I embody it now. And so when it comes to my clients and their energies being off, I absorb it because I'm an empath, but I don't hold on to it.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and you ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this evolved state of being that you're at now, the wisdom you've accumulated over this ride, what advice would you impart on that younger version of you?
I would say look within and deal with your trauma and look at others not as people to be afraid of or adversaries. Look at them as they are people that are hurting just as much as you are.
So let's say you walked into a room of all of your clients that you've had, everybody that has known you in a professional sense, and you could walk to the front of that room to a podium and tell them a fun story about you, something that would humanize you, jumping out of an airplane, the first concert you went to, just a cool story. What would you tell that room of people?
Oh, I guess the coolest thing I've ever experienced was jumping off a waterfall. That was the greatest experience, going up really high because I've always been afraid of heights, and to be able to just surrender and let myself jump. That was the greatest moment when I knew I was letting my fear no longer control me. So that would be the coolest moment that I've ever experienced. And traveling, like I love traveling, like going to Grenada, going to Mexico. Those were like two amazing experiences. Being able to like walk around and check out the culture, to try the food, to be next to the ocean. Like, because I grew up near the ocean. I'm originally from Prince Edward Island, and I'm used to being surrounded by ocean. Now I'm surrounded by mountains and plains. So that'd be the coolest thing was experiencing Grenada and jumping off a waterfall.
So, of everything that you've achieved and evolved into at this point in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Mostly I'm proud of just the growth that I've done. Because of the growth, I was able to write a book. I was able to get married. I'm able to become aware when I'm not feeling 100%. Um, so I guess it's being grateful really about everything I have and just waking up every morning and knowing that there's someone out there that's getting some form of healing, whether it's from my podcast, whether it's from my book, or whether it's from my sessions.
So, with your book, going through your life, painful chapters, I mean, I've written, and when you have to revisit things that weren't happy, it can be a hard process, but at the end, it can be cathartic. How do you conceptualize the fact that you took that time to write this story that people are reading and receiving now? How does that whole, how does that feel for you?
It was the hardest thing I had to go through because I had to relive all that trauma once again, and I had to relive that moment that I watched my mother die. But the good thing about it is it's out now, so it's no longer a part of me. It's in the book. So for people to read it, it'll inspire them and empower them. And from all the techniques and tools I've used, it works.
So at the end of the day, Andrew, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, all the listeners to your podcast, everybody that gets your book, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just a person learning every day to keep doing the work and continue to heal myself. Because when I continue to heal myself, I continue to heal others because I attract that part of me that I never thought I'd see. So the person that I'm embodying is someone who constantly does the work within, and I will continue to do the work within because it's making me a better person, a better host on my podcast, and a better family member and husband.
So if anyone wants to pick up your book, tune in your podcast, hire you, any of the good business, any questions, where's the best place to go?
Best place to go for my podcast is YouTube, Beyond Transcendence with Andrew. My book is on yeah, Amazon. You can pick it up also on Apple. You can pick it up at Barnes and Noble. It's and For sessions, anyone that wants to do like one-on-one coaching, you can find my on my website at www.andrewfwilson.com.
Wonderful, Andrew. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. I'm glad we connected, and I love your story. It's these evolved stories of finding your footing and finding your place on this planet. It's just can't be understated at all. It's a huge, huge deal. So thank you for your story. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Joe, and thank you very much for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.